Hi, everybody. I'm Trevor Thompson. Welcome to another edition of Believe in Lions, as always brought to you by FanDuel. And this week, we're going to talk about Jahmyr Gibbs. We're going to talk about Barry Sanders. We're going to talk about Dan Campbell. And we're going to talk about those guys with a guy who has a long history with the Detroit Lions in his own right. He was the face of sports on WXYZ TV in Detroit for the past 15 years. He's a three-time Michigan Sportscaster of the Year and most recently voted TV Sportscaster of the Year by the readers of Our Magazine. He is now spread out to do his own thing on all the social media platforms. It's Brad Galli, host of the Brad Galli Show, and now co-hosting this week's edition of Believe in Lions. And I know you've had so much going on over the last month, Brad, leaving WXYZ TV to do your own thing, lining up everything. Your very first show just debuted June the 1st, and what a show it was. You had Lou Whitaker, Alan Trammell, Barry Sanders, Jahmyr Gibbs, and Dusty May of the Michigan Wolverines. What a lineup to kick everything off. Just tell us about the whirlwind that it's been for you for the last couple of months before we get into the football and the Lions aspect of this show. Welcome.
Can you lead an intro every time I walk into a room? Because I feel like I'm really flexing now. Oh, my gosh.
That's you, guy. You are him. You are him.
Put me up in a uniform and get me ready for football season. You got me all sorts of fired up. Thank you, man. Listen, you've been such a good friend and in my corner for so long. And I'm not trying to date you because you're still young and you're still rocking everything you're doing. But you know I've looked up to you for a really long time. So thank you for saying all that. It's awesome to work alongside you in this great sports town. I got to work for 15 years at Channel 7. It was awesome. But with two young kids that my wife and I adore and the wife that I adore at home, the 11 o'clock news, the mantle that I got to work on for so long that I respect and revere, it wasn't conducive to my family environment anymore. So I started exploring if in this day and age, if I could go and work in digital platforms and meet fans where they are, much like we're doing here and talking about the Lions. After exploring that and finding some great partners to sponsor what we were doing, Brad Galli Show has launched. And as you mentioned, we launched with a lot of Lions love and getting Barry Sanders and Jahmyr Gibbs to sit down together. I don't think I really needed to talk much, Trevor. Just put the microphones on. And even with those two guys being notoriously quiet, just watching them interact and kind of, share generational stories of just how much the game has changed, but is still the same. And just seeing two guys at the pinnacle of their sport interact was a really neat way to kick things off.
Hey, Brad, let's just pick things up and talk about that for a second, because I listened to that interview and I found it very fascinating. You had Barry Sanders, Hall of Famer that he is, I think the best running back in the history of the game, talking with Jahmyr Gibbs, who is probably maybe in my mind anyway, the brightest talent at the running back position here today. And they brought up names, Barry Sanders brought up names like Gale Sayers, Adrian Peterson. They talked about Marshall Faulk, LaShawn Shady McCoy, those kind of names they were using in association with Jahmyr Gibbs and where he's at this point in his career. I'm wondering, just sitting with those two and the respect that they have for each other, what you think the mutual admiration society between the two of them really looks like, and how much Jahmyr is really gleaning from being this close to Barry, let's say the all-time great at that spot.
A little bit of, I'm not going to say it's off the record. It was just the cameras weren't rolling yet. And I think Jahmyr would tell us this. I said to them both as we got started, who do you think between the two of you likes doing interviews least from your time? And Barry looked at Jahmyr and Jahmyr looked at him and smiled. And Barry says, you don't like talking? He goes, no, this is not what I like to do. And Barry said, I don't like doing it either. But being there together kind of unlocked that again, mutual respect of, I'm going to sit and talk nicely about you. Well, I'm going to sit and talk nicely about you. And Jahmyr admitted, man, he goes, when you guys get into that locker room, I got, magically I have to get to the training room, and magically my training duties are done when you guys are finished.
Yeah. The old, I'll be back in a minute.
Yeah, 45. They're both guys who like to do their talking with their feet and what they do on the football field. And I thought it was fascinating to hear Barry bring up some of those names that you talked about and comparing Gibbs, who's at the top of the sport right now, right? I mean, he's easily one of the top three backs in all of football with what he's been able to accomplish in his first few years here in the NFL. He's going to get a big extension. We know that. And he's a big part of what this team is trying to do. But to hear Barry say that he's become the biggest Lions fan as a former player than he's ever been before because of that number 0, he said, I love Matthew Stafford. I love Calvin Johnson. I loved rooting on those guys and rooting on this team. But he said, we've never had a player, a superstar at that position like we've had right now with Jahmyr Gibbs. And so to see the mutual admiration, because Gibbs showered him with everything, Trevor.
Yeah.
He's the best back to ever do it. Everybody knows that. And he watched all the YouTube clips and still does try to model his game in certain parts of it, like number 20. But to hear Gibbs speak then and say he leaves me speechless because of all those compliments was really cool. And I think he feels a responsibility to carry on that mantle.
And you talk about him being at the peak of his game right now. Jahmyr Gibbs, if you look at the FanDuel odds, Brad, only Bijan Robinson has better odds at being the offensive player of the year coming into this season. And Jahmyr Gibbs right now second at plus 850 as far as the odds go, if you're looking at that sort of thing. I'm not a betting guy, but I'm betting that he is going to show out and ball this year with the Lions. He is going to lift them to another level now that David Montgomery's not there, now that these guys weren't great together, but the ball is his now. The backfield is his right now. And I really think he's going to excel with added responsibility. What are your thoughts? You've been very close to this team. You've watched him up close and personal over your years covering the Lions. What do you think he's going to do and what he's capable of doing this season?
I think the offense as a whole last year was shifting that way. And I'm tempted to say, because what we saw, it shifted that way. It was Jahmyr Gibbs' offense last year, even with all of the weapons around there. That they made it clear in camp, we could see it last summer, that Jahmyr Gibbs was going to be the bell cow for this offense. And throughout the year, David Montgomery would have games where, like in Baltimore, he would, end it with a big touchdown run, and he was a big part of the offense throughout certain games. And then Trevor, we would talk about it, right? He would only get a few carries in the 2 or 3 games in between his big outings. And the questions would get asked to Dan Campbell, and we'd be there on the Mondays after those wins or losses. Why didn't David Montgomery get to touch the ball very much? And Campbell would kind of lean back in his big stature and say, well, we'd like to get him more involved. Of course, he's a big part of our offense. But they know they have a unicorn in that backfield in Jahmyr Gibbs. He is a speedy back. He can catch the ball. He has shown that. He gets out in space. Good luck catching him. And they knew that when they drafted him. And they've unlocked all of that now. And they believe as a player of his status, he's only going to get better. And so I think this year, especially with Sam LaPorta coming back from an injury, I think losing Khalif Raymond and trying to find now what the offense looks like still with 2 phenomenal wide receivers on the edge and what Isaac Tislock can be, Jahmyr Gibbs is the key part of this offense behind quarterback Jared Goff. And I think they're going to model a lot of their game around him. I think he's the third down running back, even with Isaiah Pacheco there. I think he's going to get more carries in big situations. He's the guy.
And he's going to be worth every penny of admission to, a guy you definitely pay to watch play. One other thing I took away from that interview with you sitting down with Barry and Jahmyr, Brad, was, like you said, Barry doesn't talk a lot, but to have him talk about his heart attack, to have him talk about being involved in the community and his walk for heart walk on June the 6th, very important to him in the community. What was your takeaway from that and just where Barry's at with his health right now and how meaningful this is to him? Because like we say, a lot of people don't get to hear from Barry often. And thankfully, thanks to your interview, we were able to hear some of these things. What was your takeaway there?
When Barry suffered the heart attack in 2024, and we just found out through a statement, I think this whole town and Lions fans across the world were, sitting back in their chairs worrying about a guy that, like you said, doesn't talk very much. And so to hear a statement that he had gone through something pretty troubling and to see his road back, we're all happy he's doing well. The first thing I said to him was that he looks great. He's focused on his health, but he feels like he needs to use his voice now to show people in the community that even just getting out and walking can save your life. And anytime you see Barry nowadays, he's usually there with one of his kids, and one of his sons was there at the Detroit Sports Spectacular as he's signing autographs, and his son was posting videos of dad signing, and they get and interact with cool fans. And so family, definitely a part of what he's doing right now. But I think he realizes how important his status is in this town, even with this new generation of Lions players filling the stands. I mean, Trevor, how many years was it just number 20 jerseys in the stands, even well after he was retired? We saw some 81s, some 9s, but man, it was only 20. And now you see Gibbs jerseys, St. Brown jerseys, Hutchinson, Goff, so many of these players, and they've earned that. But you still see a lot of 20s. And I think he knows his place here, and he knows the voice that he has and that he can use. And so to see him out in the community making a difference was really, really neat. And then Gibbs looked at him and said, yeah, I'm running camps, and I get to be around kids. And I think it was a glimmer in his eye to go, if this guy can do stuff, maybe I should stick my neck out there. And it's cool to see Gibbs get involved in the community too.
Yeah, they don't have to say a lot to have an impact on kids or sports fans in this community. That's for sure. Just the names alone, their presence alone carries a lot of weight and a lot of impact. So fabulous interview. For anybody who hasn't seen it, go to the Brad Galli Show on YouTube or wherever you get your social media and check that out, because it is definitely worth your time. Brad, I mentioned that you were recently awarded the Best TV Sportscaster by Detroit Hour Magazine readers. That very same night, Dan Campbell won the award as Best Coach. The Lions won the award as Best Professional Sports Team in the city. Big night for everybody involved there. Congratulations to you guys in that role.
Thanks, man.
But I also noticed that Dan Campbell had his wife, Holly, there, and you talk about being a family man yourself, and they've got 2 kids. I know that you used to do interviews with Dan once a week throughout the season at WXYZ TV with your Lions presentation. I know that you've gotten to know him behind the scenes more than most people get an opportunity to. Just tell us what kind of guy he is away from the football field, with his wife Holly, with his kids, and just how important that is to him as a person.
He's a big dude, right? Former NFL player. His stature looks like he's made of concrete. You see him talk at these press conferences, and he's tough with us, but he's intelligent, and he's not tough in a way that's off-putting. I think people underestimate what he is as a football mind. He's really sarcastic, Trevor. And I think for a while there, during that run to the NFC Championship, the 15-2 season after that, it was crazy that a guy that is built that way could be the guy that would be the first head coach to lead this team to the Super Bowl. I still believe he's very capable of doing it. And I think he's so darn likable. His players relate to him. The staff is filled with former players. He's the kind of guy that if and when this team takes that big step, ultimately the fan base near and far is going to be proud that that was the man leading the organization. And I think right now it's a weird time. The team didn't make the playoffs. I think everybody's still the scab is turning into a scar and still really hasn't healed from losing to Washington 2 years ago. I think people are still uncertain about losing some fan favorites and not signing big free agents or making big trades for people like Myles Garrett. They've got a really impressive core around this team, and they've got a great leader at the top. And I think you're going to see it come out this year. They're back to business this year, Trevor. He keeps talking about it, and I think that fits him perfectly.
I love the schedule release. He got up behind his desk. There was no words. There was no pop in the circumstances about it. Walked out, pinned the schedule on the board, walked right back in. It's business. Here's the order of business this year. I really appreciate the way they did that because it did speak to what you said, getting back to business. And the order of business is getting to a Super Bowl and winning one for this city and this organization because they really believe they have the personnel and the capability to do that. Having said that,
say real quick, like in this world of oversaturated media and all these overproduced things, that was so refreshing to not have to see a 45-minute video. No offense to the production teams that was just, I texted all my buddies from the Lions that I knew were around that. I go, you guys, that was great for a million different reasons. It fits what you're trying to do, but also thank you. Like as someone who has to consume this and report on it, the timing of that couldn't have been better, man. Well done.
Loved it. Yeah, absolutely loved it. Having said that, right now, when you look at the odds, again, on FanDuel, the Lions are the odds-on favorite to win the NFC North over the Packers, the Bears, and the Vikings in that order. But when it comes to the NFC, and you brought up his name, Myles Garrett, and the Rams are now the number one odds-on favorite to take away the NFC. What are your thoughts on the impact of a Myles Garrett on the Rams, on the NFC Championship, in the path to getting to a Super Bowl, and where Dan Campbell's Lions fit in and what you like about their team as compared to a powerhouse like the Rams are running with right now?
It's spooky, right? To think of the roster they're trying to build over there in LA with everything they already had, and then people.
And Brad, they're talking about Aaron Donald coming back out of retirement. I mean, this could be wild. Continue with your thought, though.
No, just to think about what they're building, and people complained after the draft that they wasted a pick on Ty Simpson, a quarterback to build for the future, which is a legitimate argument considering the roster they had and how close they were to making the Super Bowl last year. But my goodness, what they're building out there is pretty wild. I'll say this. Last year, everybody thought Green Bay would take a step, and then they got Micah Parsons. I don't know what we knew about Minnesota. They were about where they were. J.J. McCarthy didn't have the season he wanted to have, which is where they're at with Kyler Murray. People expected the Bears to take a step. They took it. But right now, man, this offseason, the unrest in this NFC North, I see the Lions, as you were pointing out with the odds, as the favorite. Micah Parsons isn't coming back until October. He's starting the year on the PUP list. Mm-hmm. The Vikings are trying to figure out their quarterback situation. The Bears lost almost their entire secondary. And, yeah, they got a ton of talent coming back. So they're going to be right there. Ben Johnson's a great football mind and a good leader there. And Caleb Williams is a solid young quarterback. But what this team can do in the NFC North, if you win your division, you get the home field advantage. We remember what it was like a couple seasons ago, well, 3 seasons ago, really, when they had those 2 home playoff games and how vital that was. Get into the dance, host a playoff game, and good luck beating this Lions team. That's what I'll say. Crazier things have happened, and you can have a stacked roster, Trevor, but get there during the games and let's talk about it, man. I think you host a playoff game in Ford Field, and I like the Lions odds.
Okay, well, I want to throw this at you. You got no Kirby Joseph to start the season. You've got no Brian Branch to start the season. We're not sure what's happening with Terrion Arnold. You've got a revamped offensive line. You've got a brand new offensive coordinator after installing a new offensive coordinator last year. Calvin Shepard's second year as a defensive coordinator, but still trying to get everything down and get everything as far as their chemistry goes together on the defensive side of the ball, given all the injuries and all the replacements. I know some guys are coming back healthy, but having said all of what I just said, what is it that you do like about this year's edition of the Lions going forward with all those questions that still need to be answered?
Penei Sewell, Jahmyr Gibbs, Jack Campbell, Jared Goff, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jameson Williams. 6 guys, and there's a few more that are in the top 10, top 5 at their position across all of football. 27, 28, 29 teams across football would kill for a core like that. And that's the reality. I know everybody wanted to build more through free agency and wanted to build more through trades. The core of this team is more impressive than 75% of football. And I think last year was an anomaly. The O-line was a detriment to what they were trying to do. They addressed it quickly. They've got a new center. They slid Penei Sewell to left tackle. They've added veterans, I think, that are going to help, and they added through the drafted positions they needed to add at. Their core, Trevor, I don't think can be underestimated. I think you'd be a fool, and I'm not saying you. I think you'd be a fool to underestimate the core that they have.
Probably one too.
And the excellence that
Lots of people do.
Well, hey, man, the injuries are a real part of it. And as soon as you're starting to talk about it, I almost jumped in sarcastically to say, okay, take everything back. Everybody's got injuries. They have injuries at key positions. But I think the core that they have is special. And I think – I don't want to say Lions fans are taking it for granted, man, because they've been through a lot of pain for decades. But I think it should be highlighted how special this team's core is. And they're all ticked off that they lost and didn't get into the playoffs last year. I'll just say that.
My co-host on this show, Glover Quinn, last year really thought that when Dan Campbell took over calling the plays, that it hampered his overall head coaching ability and his overall impact on the sidelines from week to week. I'm not sure what your thought on that was, but going ahead with Drew Petzing and a new offensive coordinator, letting Dan do what he does best from a week-to-week basis, how much do you think that could change the fortunes of things and just with the continuity, have things running a little more streamlined for these guys coming into this season? How important is that in your mind?
Number one, I'm not about to pick a fight with Glover Quinn. So if Glover Quinn said it, I agree. No, I'm kidding. I'm being for real on the one part of it. I think Drew Petzing was an interesting hire. I think a lot of people wanted a sexy, flashy name right off the top, but why, right? If it's the right fit and Dan sees the right fit, and especially after learning what didn't work last year, they believe that this offense has the pieces to be disruptive in this league. But Jared Goff told us in the first week of OTAs, if you're asking us how this offense looks, how it's going to look in the fall, we're in shorts and a jersey right now. There's no way to know exactly. And of course, that's Goff being Goff. He's been around this league for a long time. He's a veteran, and he knows you can't predict how good the offense is going to be in May. But I do think with Dan Campbell as, I don't want to say the CEO role because it's not what he does. He has his hands in everything. I just told you for a while why he's such a brilliant football mind and that he is involved in everything. But I think if he can find what he had with Ben Johnson and Drew Petzing and an offensive coordinator that's creative, can get down to the core principles of what he wants. I think he thinks he has that right now with Drew. I think it gets this team back to where they want to. I mean, we're going to see, right? We're going to see if it works or if the third offensive coordinator in as many seasons will be a failure. But I believe that Dan's judgment will be fruitful for this team this year. And
he also said, he's not going to get into talking about what ifs right now in May as far as OTAs go. We're into June now, but he's referring to May when he said that last week. Not going to get into what ifs or who looks good or whatever in May. Not going to talk about the pajama party in May right now. It's about what's going forward. When you look forward, I'm looking at trying to see really what they have in Isaiah Pacheco as a backup running back right now, where that O-line is, who takes that job opposite Aiden on the edge right there. Those are some of the things I'm looking at as things unfold. What are you looking at, and what are indicators to you that this thing's going in the right way as a training camp unfolds and we get into the preseason?
I think a lot of those topics you brought up are going to be key topics we're going to be discussing during camp. I think what Alim McNeill looks like in the middle of that D-line, that's a guy that I should have mentioned in that core. He is a disruptor, and he admitted to us at OTAs the first time we got to talk to him this offseason. Yeah, he wanted to say all last season that he felt like himself coming back from his ACL, but he didn't. He said everything he worked at, everything he was trying to be, no matter what he did, Trevor, he just didn't feel like himself. and he feels like himself now. And that's a dangerous thing next to Aiden Hutchinson and what they're trying to build with Tyleik Williams, last year's first-round pick, on that D-line. So that's one area. How healthy is Alim McNeill? What kind of run stopper is he in the middle of that line? And then a second one, you brought it up a little bit ago, is Sam LaPorta and his injury. Sam LaPorta is one of the best tight ends in football when he's healthy. We have not seen him at his healthiest in a while. And the back is something very, very serious. And it's one of those things that I think people are going to be scratching their heads about all offseason. Can he come back from it? How healthy is he? He's out to prove people wrong, but also just as a football player trying to get on that field, earn an extension like he's put towards so far. But what's behind him? Brock Wright, who's also been injured. A guy in Ty Conklin that's maybe at the back end of his career, but has a lot to prove as well. That whole tight end room is filled with guys that have a lot to prove, that are good football players, but have an edge to them this year. Now let's see who can stay healthy, get out there and make a difference. LaPorta's got to be the guy, and I would hope that he'd be the guy in the first third of that season to be a key part of that offense.
Oh, there's so much to look forward to and so much to talk about. We can't wait to have it all unfold. And hopefully the Lions are the number one team in the NFC North and wind up being the number one team in the NFC and get to that Super Bowl that we all believe they're capable of. Brad, really do appreciate you taking time on the show this week. But how much Lions coverage will you have in the Brad Galli Show coming up, and what's coming up that fans of you and your show and have an opportunity to see what you're doing next can look forward to?
We're going to have a lot of Lions coverage. It's going to be, if we're talking about core principles of what Detroit Lions football is, core principles of what we're trying to do with this new entity is for the fans of Detroit. And I always say, man, Trevor, the Lions are the great uniter in this community. There's the civil war between Michigan and Michigan State and the passionate fan bases in football, but the Lions bring everybody together. And whether that's Monday morning quarterback of criticizing what happened or celebrating a postseason victory and this whole town buzzing forever, the Lions are a great uniter. And so a majority of our coverage, especially training camp into the season, is going to be centered around the Lions. So you're going to see us at OTAs. You're going to see us at training camp. We're going to be at games, talking with the players, looking for exclusive interviews. And we're going to be bringing it to you on YouTube, on Facebook, and everywhere you can find the Brad Galli Show with Lions coverage.
Well, like everybody who appreciates sports in this town, Brad, I appreciate you and everything you do. I wish you all the best in the Brad Galli Show going forward. And once again, just tell folks where they can see you, when they can see you, and how to tune in and subscribe to what you're doing and support you.
Daily updates and big-time content. We're doing one big interview a week. Find the Brad Galli Show on YouTube, on Facebook. We'll find us on Instagram, TikTok, and X. And we'll be there with constant updates daily. Not just our own stuff, man, but the updates, the scores, the breaking news, and yeah, a lot of exclusive content. So find us on YouTube, The Brad Galli Show.
There he is. You're a three-time Michigan Sportscaster of the Year and the host of the Brad Galli Show, which we're all looking forward to watching going forward. Brad, thanks for taking time out with us on this edition of Believe in Lions, brought to you by FanDuel. Everybody out there, be sure to subscribe, be sure to like, share, and enjoy Believe in Lions. We appreciate you watching, and I appreciate Brad Galli for joining us this week. Until next time, everybody, I'm Trevor Thompson. Thanks for joining us.